Coming up next, ladies and gentlemen, it's the Pro Wrestling Report, primetime Saturday night. We look at some recent suspensions in WWE, all the latest from Impact Wrestling, Raw, Smackdown, and Ring of Honor, including a new feature, the Fan Zone, featuring you, the fans, at Karma Bar and Grill. All that plus Star of the Week coming up right here, right now on the Pro Wrestling Report, primetime Saturday night. Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to the Pro Wrestling Report, prime time Saturday night here on My 24 Milwaukee. Damian Nelson sitting here alongside David, the alleged Hall of Famer hero. And what is that?
This is on loan from the Batcave. It's a little machine here that's going to help me with the mic drop, different camera angles.
Let's go right to this week's top story, ladies and gentlemen, and the big news coming out of World Wrestling Entertainment over the course of the last week. Big suspensions in WWE, the first of which was the most recently announced one, that of Randy Orton. Randy Orton suspended for 60 days due to his second wellness policy violation. This announcement coming Thursday from WWE. And this is big news. And WWE going to have to go 2 months, including seemingly leading through SummerSlam without one of their biggest stars.
Well, what's even bigger than that is Randy Orton is going to miss the 1,000th Raw in his hometown of St. Louis. That's a huge loss for WWE. But you know what? I guess if you look at it, here's now an opportunity. There's that word again. An opportunity
Guarantee?
For guys on the Smackdown brand to step up their game because a huge void has now been created. Right now, your top babyfaces on Smackdown, Sheamus and Christian.
Yeah.
Other guys have now got to step up to fill it. There's a main event spot open, unless, of course, they shift somebody from Raw to SmackDown.
Well, Randy Orton, as I said, it looks like this 60-day suspension. Obviously, it was announced on May 31st, so that takes us through June and through the month of June, through the month of July. He will be available to be a part of SummerSlam, which is, I guess, a good thing by WWE. Now, they have a pay-per-view coming up in the next few weeks, and they could have made the suspension take action at that point, but instead, they did so immediately.
Well, no, because they want to get him back sooner than later. But the interesting thing, this is now his second wellness violation policy.
Wellness policy violation.
What is words? It doesn't make a
difference.
difference.
You got a button for that over there?
Yeah, I'll rewind. Now listen, here's the thing. If he gets a third one, that's automatic termination.
It is. It is.
I mean,
we don't know the nature of the
no, but it's
violation
still a wellness policy violation. Number 3, you're fired. What are they going to do? I mean, it could be anything. I mean, look at Ryan Braun. I mean, anything's possible. But my God, Randy Orton, whatever you're doing, his career now is in jeopardy. Does the WWE creative offices, does Vinnie Mac, does Triple H, does Stephanie, do they now put more on his plate, make him a bigger star, knowing one more failed test, and he's done?
Another person who has been faced with suspension by WWE is news that broke last week, and that was Chris Jericho. Chris Jericho serving a 30-day suspension for an incident at a WWE live event in Brazil where he desecrated, if you will, the Brazilian flag in not an effort to, disrespect the flag, but performing his role as he felt it should. This turned into a huge situation where he was actually almost arrested, but only after providing an apology to the live audience was he allowed to stay in the building and not be arrested. And Chris Jericho, both Chris Jericho and WWE, obviously sorry about the incident, giving their apologies. Originally, Jericho was suspended indefinitely, and then that was modified to 30 days, and Chris Jericho has been posting a countdown to his 30-day suspension or his return to WWE after that 30-day suspension.
What is it when America's finest travel south? You know?
I'm sorry?
Well, you know, just we get in trouble when we go to these,
Tijuana? Donkey Show?
Brazil. It's never ending. But you know what? Let's face it. I can't believe Brazil. Listen, I'm sorry if anybody in Brazil was offended by it.
Well, they were.
But the fact of the matter is, he's a heel. What happened in Canada with Shawn Michaels? He practically humped the Canadian flag, right? Listen, he's a bad guy. So now every movie where they blow up a flag in Brazil is going to be banned from being shown. I think they took it a little bit too seriously. Chris Jericho is not a mean, malicious kind of guy. He's out there being the character Chris Jericho. And for them to want to arrest him, I think
that's the law. They were simply enforcing the law. The law is, if you disrespect that flag, you're going to jail. Now, I don't expect anyone to have been aware of that necessarily.
Should Chris Jericho have been suspended is the main question. No, not at all. There's no way.
Well, we're going to find out what you have to say, actually. We're going to go now to Karma Bar and Grill with PWR correspondent Linda Kay, talking to some of our fans. And that is the question, should Chris Jericho have been suspended for that incident in Brazil? Take it away, Linda.
It's Linda Kay here at Karma, and this week's question is, should Jericho have been suspended? Corey, your thoughts?
Not necessarily. I feel that WWE has done stuff that gained headlines in the past.
Should Jericho have been suspended for what just happened in Brazil?
Chris Jericho spit and desecrated on the Brazil flag. It was definitely not a good thing, especially since it was unplanned.
Ricky, what are your thoughts on this?
I'd say no, because probably he didn't know exactly what the law was, and that, it is disrespectful to do that to any other participant.
Should Jericho have been suspended?
Yes, a seasoned veteran like Jericho should have known better. And I credit WWE and hold him accountable for his actions.
All right, well, it looks like we're split down the middle of 50-50 here at Karma. Back to you guys in the studio.
And still to come here on the Pro Wrestling Report, we are going to be talking about this past Monday's Raw, this past Thursday's Live Impact, yesterday's Smackdown, and this weekend's Ring of Honor. All that plus Star of the Week. Pro Wrestling Report Primetime continues on My 24 Milwaukee.
There's only one place to get the latest from pro wrestling, including the only place to get 100% verified wrestling news. Watch or listen to all of our latest TV and radio broadcasts on demand and get caught up on wrestling news between episodes. PWRshow.com is the cleanest, friendliest, and most fan-friendly source for wrestling news on the web.
Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to the Pro Wrestling Report Primetime Saturday night right here on My 24 Milwaukee. Damian Nelson sitting alongside David Hero. And it's time to go to this week's WWE Raw report. And Raw this past Monday night had one focal point, and that was the Rampage. That was the Big Show. Big Show taking out names such as Brodus Clay, Kofi Kingston, R-Truth, and even Alex Riley in his, Alex Riley? No, the guy the Miz made? All in his Rampage this past Monday night on Raw, and I thought it was well done, especially at the end of the program. But in between all that, we saw that we found out that the match has been made a cage match between he and an absent John Cena at No Way Out on pay-per-view on June 17th.
Very interesting that WWE feels they need to invest almost 2 hours into establishing Big Show as a heel in the company after he knocked out John Cena 2 weeks ago.
After.
Not before, now after. We all know Big Show's going to be hated. He's wrestling John Cena. But they're investing so much into this one match for No Way Out, the undercard's going to be kind of scary.
Yeah. And one man who may be prominently featured on that undercard is a man who, and I quote, said to his manager, I guess, Vicky Guerrero, after a losing effort to the tag team champions, "I'm better than this," and asks that he be removed from the team of he and Jack Swagger. That man is Dolph Ziggler. It's finally that time, David Hero.
You know what? Maybe it is finally that time, but talk about a tag team that had tremendous potential.
There's that word again.
That could have been just rock star status. Dolph Ziggler and Jack Swagger, two tremendous natural athletes. They completely dropped the ball and kicked it out of bounds with these two guys. They could have put the tag belts on them, let them have a good 6 month to a year run, rebuild the tag team division around athletes. They didn't do it. Now they're gonna force Dolph Ziggler possibly into a singles run, but he's lost to everybody. How do you it's gonna.
I think you can clean it up with the fact that he's done with losing because he's on this team. He wants to break out.
But he hasn't had a big victory in a while. Much like The Miz. let's say you start to rebuild The Miz right now, the fans aren't going to be that interested. Because, well, no, they're not. They're not going to care about The Miz right now. And Dolph Ziggler, as amazing as he is, as good as he is, he has a wonderful fan following. But now he has to start from the bottom rung again.
I don't think so. I don't think so. I think all that will be forgotten. Because now his
first program is going to be with Jack Swagger. So it'll be Jack Swagger versus Dolph Ziggler in the pay-per-view.
Possibly.
Okay. And then where do you go from there? Then does he go chase after Brodus Clay, the guy that beat him up for the past 2 months? Now you're with Brodus Clay. Now Santino probably will not have the U.S. title by then. So now it'll probably be with the heel. So now there's no mid-level title belt for him to chase after. He's going to be stuck in mid-card purgatory.
WWE 13, the latest version of their video game, was announced on Monday as well. Initially with John Laurinaitis on the cover, and then CM Punk on the cover. One interesting thing about this game is it's going to feature a WWE Attitude roster, if you will, as part of the game. Game's not out till October 30th. And this was an online campaign about a revolution, blah, 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 and a big announcement of the game coming a little earlier than we normally see.
You know what's funny about that is how many of the fans were upset that the Revolution was a video game. They're like, oh, hashtag epic fail. You know what? It's your fault for having expectations.
Well, they read that it was going to be Matt Morgan. A lot of people reported that it was going to be Matt Morgan.
Or it was going to be, some of the Ring of Honor guys that are being brought up. Listen, it's a video game. It's going to be a huge seller. The Attitude Era video game is going to be tremendous. When you have DX and you have Austin and Rock and everybody else in that game, almost makes you wonder, is that the route they're going to go into for next year's WrestleMania?
CM Punk and Daniel Bryan had another matchup, this time a non-title matchup, and we would see Kane and AJ get involved, but Daniel Bryan would get the pinfall on the WWE champion CM Punk. And on SmackDown, we would learn of a modification to that matchup, which we'll talk about in a minute, but another match between these two on Monday Night Raw.
Right, and you know what? Bryan Danielson and CM Punk, now you throw AJ in the mix, and now all of a sudden she's become one of the hottest chicks in wrestling. Wow. Why are they giving away so much of these two guys on free TV? Save it for the pay-per-views. The first match was so good on pay-per-view. Don't give it away anymore.
That was this past Monday's WWE Raw, and in case you hadn't heard, the Pro Wrestling Report is live each and every Thursday night down at Karma Bar and Grill, 600 East Ogden, Milwaukee, Wisconsin, for our Impact viewing party. And let's go now to a pre-tape segment with David and myself at Karma from this past Thursday night, reviewing and talking about this week's Impact.
We're throwing it to ourselves?
Yes.
Amazing. Let me press that.
We are here at Karma Bar and Grill. TNA Impact has just gone off the air, and as you know, here at the Pro Wrestling Report, you can join us each and every Thursday night, 7 o'clock to 9 o'clock here at Karma in the PWR Lounge to enjoy Impact. And David, it was the very first episode of Impact Live. It kicked off with a big matchup, a lumberjack match. It was Sting versus Bobby Roode, non-title. Sting would pick up the win.
Sting gets the big tap-out victory, but what was the most amazing thing is all the stars around the ring. Jeff Hardy,
everybody.
Mr. Anderson, everybody except Hulk Hogan was at ringside as a lumberjack.
Which is always not the same case in WWE, because you'll see the Ortons and the Cenas and anybody else with a name not being lumberjacks.
Absolutely. They brought out the entire roster. They wanted to show the world what they have to work with.
Speaking of showing the world, you know who's here?
Linda Kay.
Lovely, Linda Kay. Linda Kay, can we borrow you for just a minute, please? Because you know what? I have right on over here. This bow tie, this flower in your head. You're like a flower child.
She is a flower.
Oh, Linda, how are you?
I'm good.
In full bloom.
Cool seeing you talking to some of the fans that showed up here at Karma earlier tonight. That was fun, huh? You're going to be doing that each and every week in the fan zone, the question of the week. How did you come up with those questions?
My newsworthy conscience. We got it down every week in the fan zone.
Excellent. Well, Linda, great seeing you as usual as we continue to talk about TNA Impact. we found out that replacing Ric Flair on the TNA Gut Check Committee will be Taz. And you chuckle because Taz is replacing Ric Flair.
It's funny. I mean, you got the greatest of all time, Ric Flair, being replaced by the two-time ECW World Champion. And you know what? Taz did a tremendous job tonight.
He did. Joey Ryan was the candidate, if you will, and it would be 2 no's versus 1 yes. The 1 yes coming from your dear friend Al Snow.
Uncle Al.
And Taz got in his face, did he, to Joey.
And you know what? Joey Ryan dropped the ball. You have an opportunity, cut the promo of your life, get the job of your dreams, and let's face it, he didn't do it. It didn't end well for Joey Ryan. Almost had to be escorted out of the ring.
Speaking of escorted out, Samoa Joe sends out some tweets tonight during the live Impact thing, and he was being escorted from the Impact Zone in Orlando, Florida. We'll, of course, find out what that's all about. We know it wouldn't be the first time that happened to Samoa Joe. We'll work that story and probably have some information for you in the coming days on what happened, if anything, with Samoa Joe at Impact tonight. The atmosphere here at Karma was somewhat subdued. However, the eyes were glued to the television screen all night long for tonight's live Impact. It had a special feel to it. It had a big event feel to it, especially going into Slammiversary in just a few days. We found out the main event for that pay-per-view. It will be Sting versus Bobby Roode for the TNA World Heavyweight Championship, coming off the heels of that big lumberjack matchup tonight.
The amazing thing about Impact Wrestling tonight, you start off with Sting and Roode, the champ and the most recognizable face besides Hogan in the company. You end it with the TNA Impact beginners, the guys that started with the company, AJ Styles and Christopher Daniels. Solid show from beginning to end, and they didn't use all their stars. You didn't have a Rob Van Dam in the match. You didn't have Ken Anderson.
Lumberjack.
Jeff Hardy wasn't used to his fullest potential. Hulk Hogan had one promo.
I think they did everything they needed to do tonight on this first of several live Impacts. I like as we heard and talked about the veil being lifted off of TNA, I like the segment in the back when they were talking about Gut Check. Bruce Pritchard, Taz, and Al Snow. Had some realism to it, some real discussion. It was engaging. Even though I didn't feel they set me up enough for what and who they were talking about, it was still engaging. I consider this a good first effort from TNA Impact Wrestling, and we'll see what they come up with next Thursday night.
And let's not forget the production value of the show was very solid.
You didn't think it would be?
I did not think it would be, but they were on their A game and they succeeded tonight.
And we will talk about Impact, of course, much more next week right here on Primetime, but there's so much more still to come here on Primetime Television, including this week's Smackdown Ring of Honor report, and also your star of the week, David Hero. I can't wait to hear who it's going to be. Actually, I can't wait because I don't care.
Are we going to throw back to ourselves now?
We're going to throw back to ourselves, absolutely. From Karma Bar and Grill, the home of the Pro Wrestling Report during our Summer Spectacular. David Hero, Damian Nelson, let's take a time out. We'll be right back. Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to the Pro Wrestling Report. Primetime Saturday night, and let's talk about this week's WWE Smackdown. Last night, Smackdown on Sci-Fi featured the return of Sin Cara, David Hero, gone with the blue and gold, in with the red and white, out with Heath Slater as well.
Just because it's Heath Slater, you got to bring up red? You know what? I feel bad for Heath Slater. I mean, yes, he got you the big.
The man who won me this.
He does
the man who won me this.
To Sin Cara.
Somebody had to. Somebody's got to make Sin Cara look good.
And you know what he did? They had actually a pretty solid, good match. Welcome back, Sin Cara.
We talked about Dolph Ziggler when we talked about Monday Night Raw. He had a matchup with Sheamus on SmackDown. Jack Swagger would cause Ziggler to come up losing in that matchup.
You know, I don't understand why the world champion Sheamus is now involved in a mid-card spat between Swagger and Dolph Ziggler. I think it's because they don't have anybody else on SmackDown for him to work with. They got to keep Del Rio away from him until the pay-per-view. But other than that, the SmackDown brand is hurting for some big-time star power.
Well, and maybe they tried to address that with the return of Zack Ryder to television this past Friday
And
night, just
how
last
did that
night.
work out for Zack Ryder?
He lost fairly quickly
He's
to.
better off staying off TV altogether, isn't he? Yeah.
Actually, he won. Santino and him.
Let's bring you back on TV, Zach, and then you get
Titus and O'Neil, of course, they would then be
Wow.
attacked by the Big Show afterwards. Both Santino and Zack Ryder did. But you know what? Some more tag team wrestling, and a lot of people talking about this team with Titus and O'Neil.
But you know what? It's great they're having tag team wrestling, but when the Big Show is annihilating the tag champs in Kofi and Truth, and then he annihilates Santino and Zack Ryder, well, come on. What are you're not building the tag team division when the largest wrestler on the planet's killing everybody.
You don't like the Big Show, do you?
I do like the Big Show,
It
but
doesn't sound like it.
you know what? I think they could have given this spot to somebody else. I don't think the Big Show has to be reinvented to go into a program with John Cena.
Mark Henry, it worked for him. We'll talk about that a little bit later on in another episode, because I think there's a comparison to be made there. CM Punk versus Kane, the WWE Championship being defended on SmackDown for the first time in 4 or 8 years, depending on who you listen to. However, Daniel Bryan would get involved, and due to his involvement, the match at No Way Out is now a triple threat matchup. Kane, CM Punk, Daniel Bryan. One of these kids is doing the wrong thing.
Wow. I mean, wrestling fans were going crazy for the rematch between DBD and CMP, and now you throw in the big red machine? It doesn't fit. It's not going to work.
Does this just get us to SummerSlam somehow or another? Got to fill 2 months of pay-per-view matchups with a week SmackDown?
Do you honestly think Kane has a chance to leave as the champion?
If Punk and Bryan get too distracted with each other, maybe that's what we're supposed to believe.
Right, but what kind of a run does that mean for CM Punk that Kane ends his run? Kane does not need to be the flagship guy on Monday Night Raw. He hasn't had a meaningful feud. I mean, he lost the ambulance match to John Cena. He lost the Chicago.
He lost every match, pretty much.
Well, no, I mean
He won at Mania, but
and then he loses to Randy Orton at Extreme Rules in big matches. How is he rewarded by being in a world title match? And yes, he is talented. He's been there for a long time. He's a model employee for the company. But I can think of 3 or 4 other guys that should be in that match besides Kane.
that's this week's WWE Smackdown, and now it's time to talk about this weekend's Ring of Honor television, and a big match made featuring the new champion Kevin Steen. But Kevin Steen was threatening towards Jim Cornette, saying he was going to go to, and I didn't get an invite to the ROH affiliates dinner. Did you?
I got that, yeah. It was fantastic.
Was it do you have a +1?
No, I just took myself.
You went already?
Oh, yeah.
It hasn't happened yet.
This box here is a time future machine.
Jim Cornette was going to announce the opponent for Kevin Steen at Best in the World, but Davey Richards, who there are rumors swirling around about his retirement, by the way, comes out and gets involved and actually defends Kevin Steen, saying both he and Steen are 2 of the best wrestlers in the world, and they're going to get a chance to prove it because that match is made. And if Richards, no matter what actually, it will be Davey Richards' last shot at the Ring of Honor Championship.
Davey Richards had to do that because Kevin Steen is building steam, and the fans are almost siding with him. As much as they hate Kevin Steen, they respect him. They're almost getting tired of the Davey Richards era. So it makes the most sense for him to prolong this feud by saying, hey, we're the 2 best, and we'll do it one more time.
Davey Richards is a phenomenal professional wrestler. And this retirement discussion, some of it coming from him, some of it coming from obviously the well talked about wrestling rumor mill. The fact that they've said that this is going to be his last chance at the championship means either he will win it or he's done.
Well, he has a successful business outside of wrestling. He doesn't need wrestling to survive, and maybe he wants to take a break for a little while. Nothing wrong with that.
This week's Ring of Honor, don't forget, Ring of Honor is coming to Milwaukee on July 14th. That event at Turner Hall. Tickets available right now. Tickets.com. Don't want to miss all the Ring of Honor action coming to Milwaukee's Turner Hall. First time in 8 years you can see Ring of Honor live. David Harrow, it's time now for us to hear who you have deemed as this week's Star of the Week.
This week's PWR Star of the Week is wrestling's largest man, the world's largest athlete, the Big Show, the guy.
Wrestling's largest man.
Well, isn't he? I mean, there's anyone really truly bigger in wrestling than the Big Show right now? He has taken out all of the kid-friendly baby faces, from Brodus Clay to Kofi to Truth to Santino to the beloved Zack Ryder. They are building him to be the big monster going into No Way Out with John Cena, and I don't see him stopping until he gets in that cage. This week's PWR Star of the Week, the Big Show.
Wow, that's impressive. Surprising, actually. It sounded like you hated him for all the rest of the episode.
I don't know. I don't hate him. I don't understand it.
That's this week's edition of the Pro Wrestling Report Prime Time on My 24 Milwaukee. Make sure you hop on over to our website, pwrshow.com, for exclusive content and extension of the conversation here on this program, where we compare the rebuilding of Mark Henry to the current rebuilding of the Big Show. For that one, this is Damian Nelson saying we'll see you Thursday night at Karma Bar and Grill, where you can join us to watch Spike TV's Impact Wrestling and get a chance to be on the Fan Zone here on PWR Prime Time. We'll see you next week.